Welcome to the Brass Junkies, a podcast from the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network featuring interviews with the world's greatest brass players by two thoroughly average ones, Lance LaDuke and myself, Andrew Hitz. Today's episode features our former colleague from Boston Brass, J.D. Shaw. He talks about his latest project, Cones and Tones, which involves Lance and myself as well as Dr. David Cutler on piano. We also put him on the spot by asking him to name the players he would put in his dream brass quintet. And no, we gave him no warning at all. That would have been the nice thing to do. He tells us all about it next. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I am one of your hosts, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by my incredibly talented and esteemed colleague, Dr. Lance LaDuke. How are you doing today, Lance?
I'm esteemed.
And he's not esteemed and he's not a doctor. So, how many master's degrees did you drop out of, Lance?
Two.
Two. That's the same number as me. All right. So, stay in school, kids. Our guest today is a repeat guest.
Our first repeat guest.
Yeah, our first repeat guest. His first episode was actually such a lack of success that we thought that we would have him back to try again. That would be our former colleague in Boston Brass, Mr. J.D. Shaw. How are you, J.D.?
Right.
I'm good. I guess I'm a repeat because I do have a master's degree.
Yeah, you're so learned. And our current colleague in a new group called Cones and Tones, which we are going to get into in just a second. I wanted to take a moment to thank all of our patrons through Patreon, which is for those of you not familiar with it, is a website where you can help subsidize creators of various things. In our case, obviously, a podcast. There are a whole lot of expenses that go into hosting this and a bunch of other things for Pedal Note Media. And we have a number of people now who are paying a very small amount per episode to help us do what we do and to keep these incredibly fascinating and insightful interviews coming. We're loving it, but we very much appreciate the help that we're getting from our Patreon patrons, and they have a very special treat coming their way very soon, which they may actually have already heard about by the time this airs. So thank you to all of you, and thank you to everyone who's gone to iTunes to review the show and to give us a rating that helps other people to find our little podcast here. So JD,
what about Buddy and what's his
name? That's right. Who, Buddy and what's his name? Austin. That's it. Yeah, our producers. We wanted to thank them off the top as well. And unfortunately, Buddy and Austin of fredbrass.com, were not able to join us on the call today. But I think, Lance, you know why they weren't able to join us?
Yeah, they're shoe shopping.
They're like on Zappos or like in person?
No, they're out together. They had matching handbags for a long time, but they needed shoes that coordinated both with the handbags and each other. So
one of them lives in Massachusetts, the other lives in Baltimore. Where are they shoe shopping?
Well, that's the weird part. They're in Denver.
Bob Denver?
Yeah.
All right.
We should have a moment of silence for Bob Denver.
Too soon.
And
right.
Dan Haggerty. And Funicello.
Yep.
And Bowie.
All right. Yes, and yes.
And Rickman.
And Alan Rickman, yes, the villain from the greatest Christmas movie of all time, Die Hard. My wife doesn't think that that's a Christmas movie. I'm glad that we discussed that after we were already married. Of course it's a Christmas movie. It's the greatest Christmas movie of all time. So, which seems...
Not a Hanukkah movie.
No, it's not a Hanukkah movie. All right. So this is off to a great non-rambling start. JD, how are you?
I'm great. What about you guys?
We're doing okay.
Obviously good.
Oh yeah, we're just
punchy.
as good as could be expected. So.
See, we record these 3 at a time, and whoever's third gets the punchiest version of us. And congratulations, you're drawing the short straw today, JD.
Again.
Punchypodcast.com is our new URL.
.gov.
Not really. All right, so JD, you had let's talk about this project that we're doing, Cones and Tones, which is a quartet, which features. Well, I guess you could maybe guess French horn and euphonium and tuba, and the fourth member is fourth book is for lunatic piano player, and so we found David Cutler, your colleague at the University of South Carolina. But I thought we could first start by you talking about where this project came from, because it was originally a duo with another tuba player.
Yeah, originally this came out of actually a music festival for high school and junior high kids out in Las Vegas. And Sam Palafian and I were doing this camp, and it was an extension of the Las Vegas youth orchestra project. And so they brought us out basically to inspire brass playing in the Las Vegas area, and really put an educational focus on some brass playing there. And so we went out there in the summertime for a few summers, and we're working with just some of the greatest kids. But it was also at the same time they were opening up the Smith Center in Las Vegas, which is a relatively new performing arts center. And so they had approached the Las Vegas Youth Orchestras about having a group to play at the opening of, I believe it was their cabaret hall. And so Sam and I discussed the possibilities, and there is some music written for horn, tuba, and piano, and Alec Wilder was actually one of the first ones to come up with some great music for that combination. And so we were looking for the literature, and we started with the Wilder, and then started thinking about other things that we could do, and it came down to writing a bunch of different pieces and arranging some things and creating a program that would inspire both adults and the youth of this festival alike. And so it actually started as it was a duo, but in terms of me and Sam, but we brought in a piano player, we brought in a drummer, and we also brought in, because obviously with French horn and tuba, we needed somebody nerdier than us, so we brought in an accordion player. And it was a lot of fun. We did everything from Bach and Piazzolla and some jazz. So it was really kind of an eclectic, fun thing. And we really had a great time with it. And now Sam is playing with Boston Brass now, so he's extremely busy with that. And so we started talking with you guys about where this could go.
Who's not working much? Let's call Lance and Hitz.
They'll do anything.
Exactly. Well, and then bringing in the crazy Dr. Cutler on the project too was certainly could be fun. So, and I think another thing that we had talked about for this Cones and Tones group, and conical instruments plus the tones of the piano, if you're having trouble with that, was I think really it came out with just love of music and friends, and wanting to get together and play some fun music. But also I think we're all involved in music entrepreneurship and the developing of ensembles and products and the marketing of those. And so I think one of the concepts that we originally talked about was kind of documenting everything we're doing and trying to get a group going, and using some of our knowledge, and also using some of the things that we'll try and possibly will fail, and things that work, and just try to see if you can develop somewhat of a template for getting a musical ensemble up and running. But I think at the end of the day, it really comes to great products are always have their genesis in people that have a great time together and can make great things, and it'll yet to be seen if it's a great thing, but I think the desire is there.
So, what are the challenges for writing for this combo, or are there? I mean, you have the artistry of Andrew and me, and of course you, and then the good doctor. But
It's like a limitless palette of colors.
Well, it's certainly something that it's not an ensemble that has a whole lot of music written for it in the first place. So I don't think it necessarily has challenges, but opportunities. To hear sounds that you haven't heard before. I mean, an ensemble without trumpets, yay! Sorry, all you trumpet players out there. But it just,
Hey, I got to interrupt. The first time that I ever worked with Sam Palafian, I was 14 years old, Empire Brass Seminar, the first day. We all break up into different instruments and go to the different sheds, which are all outdoors, to play through some stuff so that they can get a sense of where people need to be placed. And Sam was there with Warren Deck, who happened to be visiting Tanglewood, and he's just talking to us. And then from just up over the hill, all of a sudden you hear the sound of like 15 trumpets all playing like a tuning B flat at one time. And it interrupted his sentence, and Sam just kind of like put his head down and he exhaled, and then he said, "Why did God have to put trumpets into the brass quintet?" And then everyone laughed, and then he kept going. So
it's the bagpipe effect.
It is the bagpipe effect. Yes, yeah, exactly.
So, this name dropping moment was brought to you by Jupiter Music. But I think overall, when I've started writing for this ensemble, it's been really, really neat to write. First, from a tonal aspect, because you're using just the conical instruments in the brass family, other than flugelhorn, because that requires a trumpet player, and we don't do that. So it has a really unique sound, a very warm sound. But at the same time, with the addition of the piano, what it does is it allows for some really wonderful soloistic and virtuosic opportunities to feature each of the musicians. And one of the issues when I wrote for Brass Quintet is kind of everybody was on task all the time, both playing solo and accompaniment. The nice thing with the piano is you can have the whole ensemble playing at times, and then other times you could just have solo piano, or you could just have piano accompaniment with a solo voice, or you could have the brass acting as the accompaniment for the piano acting as a solo voice. So it really creates a lot of variety and a big spectrum of colors in which to deal with.
You want to give us kind of an overview of the some of the tunes, or if you have the rundown there, some of the tunes we're playing?
Yeah, we're gonna start off with a piece by the composer, a Creole composer from New Orleans, Louis Moreau Gottschalk. He wrote some great things around the turn of the century, kind of an Americana type thing called Tournament Galop. And we go and play some 3-part adventures from Bach. We're doing some music of Piazzolla. We're doing some Brahms. There's some good comedy bits in there, hopefully. And
he means tuba melody.
Exactly, or Lance trying to play something serious. And I think it's not just a musical production, but there's some visual things in there. There's some comedic things in there. I believe as we were discussing this, one of the ideas we had was that it was kind of a reunion band from an orchestra or ensemble that doesn't exist anymore, and basically we're the only 4 left. And as you can see, from horn, tuba, and euphonium, we're pretty much the redheaded stepchild. Children are the only ones left. So there is a comedic narrative to this thing as well, and it's evolving too. As I write things, I'm like, oh, this could be really, really great, and then I'll think of something else or go that route. So, and with any ensemble, it will evolve over time. So in these first few concerts that we do here this spring, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of, yeah, that worked. Yes, this didn't work. What can we do to adjust things? And to me, that's what I love most, is that kind of R&D approach to music programming. And as in one way, it does present challenges. In others, it's incredible opportunities.
What's your take on the state of brass chamber music in terms of what is catching your eye or ear about that's interesting, or what do you wish people? I wish people would go more off of this idea, or what would you like to see more of, or what do you think is cool that's happening?
I think the neatest thing that's happening in all chamber music, not just brass chamber music, is I see a trend that's getting away from kind of the set ensemble, where you have to have the string quartet or the brass quintet or the woodwind quintet or the piano trio. And what's neat is I'm seeing that presenters are getting more and more open to more eclectic ensembles that offer a different voice and more variety within their programs. And I do hear some negativity from people that are involved with some of those kinds of ensembles. I don't think they're ever going to go away. There's still great opportunities for them as well. But I think the market is getting opened up a little bit. And in a time when there's a lot of negativity in classical music and chamber music, as I'm looking at it, the desire for these different, unique ensembles is really exciting.
What groups are catching your eye right now?
I think one of the best ones, and they've certainly been around for a while, is Time for Three. And I know, Andrew, you can talk a little bit more about them, but here's a group that came out, and it's really a non-traditional setup. And there is no boundaries for what they can do in terms of classical, jazz, fusion, funk. Anything is possible out there, and I think they are one of the pioneers. I'm sure there's many other, but when I think about the acceptance of an eclectic ensemble like that, both from a programming and instrumentation standpoint, I tend to gravitate towards some of the stuff that they've done.
If I could throw in a shameless plug for the foundation, I sit on the board of directors of the Time for Three Foundation, and there's some very exciting things coming up out of that organization in 2016. So I thought that I would throw that plug in since you asked.
So JD, let's say I'm going to here you go. You could go in any direction you want. I'm going to endow you with the power and the budget to program a season. Who are you going to put on this 5-6 concert season? Well, let's assume Time for Three is on there. Who else would you put on that?
Wow.
And money's no object. You don't have to worry about anything except you get to pick the bands that you want.
You better say Fish, dude.
Oh, money is no object. By the way, Andrew, who's Fish?
There you go. It's a hippie band I follow.
A capital F, or is it a lowercase f?
Oh boy, that would take a lot of thought. But just off the top of my head, if I'm and
no, we need your final answer now.
Well, let's see. And just, I guess if I'm coming at a thing of more of a chamber music series,
sure, yeah.
I think there are some groups out there that have kind of a set ensemble that I think are doing exciting things, which I think of the Eroica Trio, and that's not only just from their programming and their musicianship and artistry is just incredible. When I've seen them live before, I've been blown away every single time. So, it's a traditional piano trio in its instrumentation, and they do play some more traditional works, but the artistry and passion and fire, with which they come to the program, I think is incredibly engaging. Lance, what is the name of that violin piano duo? Guzman and Jupe. That'd be definitely one that I would have on there. Wonderful musicianship and just incredible comedic element to it, just for all ages. I think
nice guys. Yeah, they performed with the PSO, the Pittsburgh Symphony, a couple of years in a row, and they did a master class at or a convocation at Carnegie Mellon it was sometime in the fall. It was really cool. Just their approach to, they don't think of them. Well, I shouldn't say it that way. They're obviously a comedy music duo or music comedy duo, but they approach it just the same way we do in terms of a programming. It's a comedy set piece instead of a musical piece, but they come at designing the show. It seems as though they come at designing the show the same way.
Yeah, there's a really unique group that I saw last week at the Chamber Music America concert. It's called the Fourth Wall, and it was bass trombone, percussion, and flute. And not only are they great musicians, but they're also incredible dancers. I mean, professionally trained dancers. So watching this trio play Toccata and Fugue in D minor, set to all this movement, and was really engaging. As an arranger, I'm like, how are these three going to do Toccata and Fugue in D minor? And just the musical arrangement was really intriguing. But then they put all this body movement and motion to it that was incredible.
They really impressed me. Dave Cutler's been championing them for a while. They won his competition down there. And I went to their website and I looked at a little bit of stuff, but I kind of didn't get it until I saw them live, and then I just became a huge fan. I just think they're doing really cool, interesting stuff.
Yeah, really, really moving forward. There's so many groups out there. It's hard to just say who'd you put on there, because
other than Cones and Tones, would you stick a brass group on there?
Oh, sure. There's certainly brass groups out there that are doing interesting stuff. As I mentioned last week at Chamber Music America, you had C Street Brass out there with David Cutler doing a really interesting version of Rhapsody in Blue, which they denoted as Rhapsody in Purple,
right.
which took a very classic piece, put in a different instrumentation, a really different setting and narrative throughout the show. Other brass things that are going out there, boy, there's so many of them. I would hate to name just one because I'm friends with so many of them at the exclusion of somebody. I get in trouble.
Well, that was the intent. Okay, well, let's play a different game. Here's the different game. Again, you have
I like games.
You have unlimited budget, and whoever you ask says yes automatically. You're going to put together a chamber group, and you can pick the instrumentation and the personnel, who's in it, how big is it, what's that makeup of that band.
Wow.
We're going to call this episode "Putting J.D. Shaw on the Spot."
Mm-hmm.
I like it.
Can I just say that we just put Edgar Meyer in there immediathere?
Sure.
I'm a fan. That could be, but then I think, well, do it. Would I want Edgar Meyer or who's the other guy that used to play with Bela Fleck? Victor Wooten.
Oh, sure.
I mean, any one of those.
Option C, which is both.
Yeah, I get them both.
Building it. Why not?
There you go. And let's see. Trumpet players. Okay, now next one. Trumpet players. I'm just joking. Yeah.
Hire a famous one and then make them just rest the whole time. Like hire Chris Bodie and just make him just sit there.
That'd be a good gig for Jens Lindemann with his jaw problem.
There you go.
Tacit. Oh, I thought you said take it.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
The optional octave up.
You know what? I would definitely put David Cutler on that stage just because the creativity. I would give anything for 1 ounce of that man's creativity, and just you never know what's going to come out of the piano. Literally, figuratively, mentally, physically, who knows? So many things.
Emotionally.
Emotionally. It exudes. Other musicians. Throw time for three on stage there. I guess you could take any of those groups that I messaged, throw them on stage, and it could be incredible. So I think anybody who's just taking a different bent and is showing something new and innovative at the same time being engaging to the audience is what I would really go for.
Hey, this is Lance. We'll get you right back to the interview in just a minute. I wanted to, first of all, thank you all for listening. You've been wonderful. We've got hundreds of you that are listening to every episode, and that's just great. It's very rewarding to Andrew and me. And we wanted to let you know that if you're interested in helping us cover the costs associated with recording and uploading and storing these podcasts, there's a quick and easy way for you to do that, and that's through a site called Patreon, Patreon. And at Patreon, Patreon, if you sign up through that site, you can pick a dollar amount, $1, $3, $5, $10, however much you want. And every time we upload an episode, your account will be deducted for that amount. And you can set an upper limit per month or per year so that if we end up uploading additional content, that you won't be charged more than wherever you set that limit. You also will get access to some free downloads and behind the scenes things that Andrew and I are working on in preparing for future episodes. So if you're interested in helping out, we'd love to have you help you. Thank you very much for listening. Spread the word. Visit pedalnotemedia.com, click on the donate button, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. And now back to your regularly scheduled podcast, already in progress.
I guess my hunch is I know the answer to this question, but how relevant do you think genre is anymore for listeners?
I think I think there's some level of appropriateness for knowing your audience and knowing what the makeup of your if you're a concert presenter and you have a particular audience that's coming to things. I think there are some things that fit more than others, but putting things in a hard, fast genre and boundaries. I do remember when you had the dreaded genre of mixed ensemble within presenter and concert circles, and I think if of anything, that's where when I look at today's chamber music, that's where the most interesting things that are coming from. These mixed ensembles where it's a group of instruments that you never would have thought of, and because of that mixed ensemble, it's requiring people to arrange and compose new music from a very interesting standpoint.
There's actually a lot of bleed over between genres in books nowadays as well. There's a podcast I listen to called the Sell More Books Show, and they talk about whether there's a lot of books that are now being written, especially on the fiction side of things, that bleed into maybe 3 genres at the same time, whereas not that long ago, because of the gatekeepers, it was much more focused, and a lot of them that are having a lot of success that way, and so it seems like maybe that all of art is going that way, which I think is kind of natural.
Well, and there was a discussion last week at the Chamber Music America conference where, for so many generations, everybody said, well, these darn kids are getting nothing but pop music. But I think with the rise of social media, YouTube, and all these kind of things, that you go to YouTube, and yes, you can get your latest Taylor Swift video on there, but the things that are going viral and are really interesting are things that are really off the beaten path, and kids are getting exposed to more eclectic things through the media, and so I think as they come up, they're wanting more variety of things in their entertainment, which as an industry of musicians, we should be seeing this as an opportunity, not as something that's limiting or excluding something that always has been.
That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. Well, and you've got groups like Pomplamoose and Walk Off the Earth and Daniel Ate the Sandwich and that Pentatonics and Lindsey Sterling, who are taking the Taylor Swift kind of pre-packaged, incredibly polished, but in a box pop tune, and they're reinventing them and they're reinterpreting them. And so, or here's actually a much better example is the Postmodern Jukebox, which my 13-year-old son is a big fan of these guys, and so he gets to hear this Taylor Swift tune that he likes, but done in a ragtime style or done in a postmodern bop, whatever. Like he gets exposed to different genres via one genre. I guess that's where that was my leading question, where it was leading. It's just such a cool, interesting time. The mashup phenomenon is really...
Exactly. Yeah, my 11-year-old heard All About the Bass with Postmodern Jukebox to it, and then I was flipping through some Sirius channels in the car the other day, and a Glenn Miller thing came on. She was like, "Oh, that sounds like that All About the Bass song." So when else in history would we have had this marriage of pop music with something that's 80 years old? And there's other things as well. I remember going to a music appreciation class years ago and watching my professor show how the chord sequence from Pachelbel's Canon fit in all these rock tunes from the 70s.
It's like the axis is awesome.
Well, and I remember at the time thinking, wow, they're really trying to force this thing. And now it's not a forced thing. It's just like, yep, this is that. This could be that. This could be that. Anything you could just, rather than there being a through line, continuous time chronological thing, it's just all vectors from one place that can inspire something else.
So that actually begs a question, which is a tangent and a rant waiting to happen. But aside from that music appreciation class, why is it that so much of music education at the collegiate level now is like stuck in these silos of not talking about all this commonality and the bleed over and all that stuff? How can we be stuck decades ago?
Well, I mean, that's certainly there's
he
a lot of
tenure yet, man. Be careful.
Oh, that's right. Well, and his school happens to be one of the most forward-thinking ones out there, which is
That's
awesome.
right.
So, and I'm not just saying that to cover him. That's true. From the guy at the top all the way on down to the lowly horn professor without tenure yet. But
lowly is right. But it's one of the reasons that I did I did go to University of South Carolina, because I saw that they were doing a lot of engaging things. And so I think we're at the point in history where we can sound like the old guy on the front porch telling kids to get off the lawn and, why are we stuck in this, and and we shouldn't change. I think of anything right now, and I've seen it just being part of it, is the conversation is starting. So rather than saying, why are we stuck in this, I think we need to look at, there is all across the country, I'm seeing every school challenging the paradigm just a little bit. And it's going to be a slow process. It's just kind of the nature of what academia is, that it kind of moves slowly under the weight of discussion and committee and all that kind of stuff. But I think at the same time, it very seriously and thoughtfully vets certain things to make sure that there is an organized and commonality of goal and purpose. And I think we're at the point now where we don't necessarily have the solutions yet, as we're still identifying the challenges. And we're also, 20 years ago, there was a set focus of what classical music was and chamber music was, so it was fairly easy to design a curriculum around it. And now, what is it? Boy, it could be anything. And so that definition of what the product is has to be a little clearer before we can decide how to teach it, how to program it, how to move it forward. And I don't really see a whole lot of a pushback on this. There's certainly, and rightly so, I think there should be some people sitting back going, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? Questioning everything. But I think at the forefront, and this is something that I learn from Cutler all the time, let's start with the dream. Let's start with what we think it is. And as we develop the strong mind and product, then we can start considering the logistics and difficulties of things rather than shooting down every idea right off the bat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, man, that was deep.
Yeah, it was deep. That's once in a row.
Cold, too.
The best 100 years ago, the best way for someone to learn to play the French horn was to study with someone who was really good at playing and teaching how to play the French horn, and that hasn't really changed. So the best way for a kid to get really good is to be sitting next to you in that studio for an hour after they've done the things that, well, theoretically, done the things that you ask them to do. So then the challenge at the School of Music level is that no one's improved on that yet. I mean, the technology and delivery systems have changed, but that one-on-one thing hasn't. So how do we not sacrifice that and still recognize that it's a different world than it was?
Well, I think it's sort of like looking at an iPhone. You still have to have component parts that all work together to create a piece of technology that works every time you pick it up, hopefully, that has the capability, memory, speed to handle all of this other thing, which is content to go in it. So you have to have the fundamental basic building blocks of a great product, and then it's all about the content that you put in it. So I think that's really where it's coming from, is not getting rid of the proper manufacturer of the component product, the building blocks of horn or whatever instrument it is, but at some point we have to start getting content that isn't solely in my case in the horn studio. I remember when I was doing a concert of all operatic arias, and my wife studied opera, and I used to just listen to all this great literature. And I used to think, well, what would it be like to play that on horn? So I arranged a bunch of operatic arias for horn, and I could have gone in and I could have started taking lessons from another horn player to help me out with this. But what I did is I started taking lessons from my wife's vocal teacher, and I'd be sitting there playing something, and she'd go, "You sound like a horn player," and that was not a good thing to her as we were engaged in this endeavor. And I learned so much more from her in terms of coming at something from a vocal standpoint. And that's just one thing. And so I think one of the neat things that I'd like to see is, what if in the 4 years of your curriculum in undergrad, maybe you take one semester in your later years after you have a good foundation, you go study with somebody else that is of an interest in an area that really takes you somewhere. What if I have a student right now that's really involved with computer music and recording technology and that kind of stuff? And I think it'd be great if I could just take him for a semester and just say, I want you to go study with this other faculty member that has all the knowledge there, and see how you can marry that a little bit more. And in doing so, we're creating not just another robot of horn excerpts and solos and all this kind of stuff, but somebody who is finding their own voice with French horn and computers. There's so many possibilities, and I think because of the creativity and openness of the current world of chamber music, if you want to, or chamber music or classical music, if you really want to call it that. I'm not sure. I think even calling those things kind of binds you in, maybe. But I think that if we can encourage students to find their individual voice, what are you interested in? If you want to play in an orchestra, great. We'll trade you to play in an orchestra. You want to do computers and horn, great. We want to do that. But we want to have the environment which we can encourage that creativity and find more musicians that have their own voice, something that's completely different, completely eclectic, innovative, new, and that's what can be entertaining our audiences to come.
What's the biggest obstacle, do you think, in terms of those kids finding that voice?
Fear. I think number one, fear is the biggest thing, because, and I'm not. I think that happens both teacher and student. It's easy to kind of sit back and do things in the traditional structure. The traditional structure is there and is strong because it worked for so long. And I'm not necessarily saying it doesn't work now, but I think the end game is a little bit different, and so we need to adjust it a little bit. I don't think we have to. I don't think it has to be wholesale change, but I think in how can we enhance the current structure and make something cool. So when you're looking at, let's say you have a horn player who's sitting there and go, well, I could have this job, which I know there'll be money, and to which I say, well, you're in music. There is no guarantees in that whatsoever, and just making money can't be your goal to artistry. I think the main thing is do what you love, find the great product, and the money will happen. I don't think you can focus on that financial side. I think you have to understand the realities of it, but you have to shoot for what that product is, what that voice is. And so it does take some very difficult decisions and stepping out of what your comfort zone might be. It sounds a little cliche, but it really is true. that we have to start exploring a little bit more. And I'm not sure that that's just students, guys, either. I mean, I find myself going, okay, I'm doing this. And what if I did this? Well, I'm not real comfortable with that. Well, that might be a good indicator of exactly what you need to do is on the things that you were scared of the most. Sort of like when we tell a kid, go practice the things you're not good at. Well, explore the things that scare you a little bit, and you might find something that's really intriguing. And once you conquer it, it's great.
There's a great book called The War of Art by a guy named Stephen Pressfield. It's one of my favorite little books. I probably recommend that book. Probably Seth Godin first, and then second would be this War of Art book. And he talks about, as an artist, you that thing that you're talking about, that thing that you're afraid to do, he calls it the resistance. He gives it a name. He calls it resistance. And he said that it's an incredible gift for any artist because what it is a compass point. And it tells you exactly the direction you need to be going, which is directly in towards that resistance. Whatever that thing is, that thing that gives you chills on the back of your neck, well, that's where you probably ought to be going.
Right. Well, and that brings up another point that I think that we have to be, as innovators and people that are trying to move things forward, it's real easy to kind of villainize the traditional paradigm, that the way things are set up, and what you can create is I mean, if you call it the resistance or the cartel, or I mean, you can even look in presidential politics right now, how you can alienate a group of people that could be an ally to what you have to do later on. So I think rather than saying, well, we got to issue the old guard or whatever you want to call it, that we have to be careful that a lot of those things are in place because there is value and there is structure and there is strength in that. And what we have to do is, because I think of, I remember talking to this one guy years ago, and he was a traditional string teacher, and he felt alienated by a lot of the younger performers because everybody was saying he's the problem. And he was right on this, that all the young performers were out there doing the thing because a lot of it because of the strong fundamentals and building blocks that the traditional structure gave him. And I think we have to it sounds a little touchy-feely, but I think we have to take the good wherever we can find it. And there's a whole lot of good still in the traditional structure of things. And if we can come together a little bit more and find what is the next direction of things without alienating people, to use that to move forward as well.
Yeah, it's a yes and. It's the great, the first rule of improv is you never deny anything. So it is not to knock that other thing down, but we're going to add a new thing on it. We're going to acknowledge that thing is the reality, and then great. Now where do we go? Let's add to it. Yes, and not only that, but we're going to add this too.
Right. I have students right now that are, I mean, their main passion in life is listening to the great, symphonies of Mahler and tone poems of Strauss, and they want to play in an orchestra. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And I'll teach them. I mean, now what I want to do though is make sure that they have a number of other skills as well, so that if for some reason that doesn't work out, that they have somewhere still to have a voice. Maybe the voice is not just set in that, or maybe that voice in traditional orchestral, which I love. I mean, I was just watching. I think somebody put up that Mahler 2 chorale on Facebook, and I was watching that yesterday, just going, "Oh boy, I love this!" And it just brought me back to being in college and sitting there around with my buddies, debating whether Chicago Symphony's recording or New York Philharmonic or Berlin was the better one. And so there still is a love of that, but can you take that passion for that and maybe do something in addition to that, or take that and take that to the next level? Who knows?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tightrope, because there are quite a few people from the old guard who have the fear that you were talking about, who are resistant to any change at all. And so, but your point is dead on, where if you just discard the old guard as a result of the few people who are gripped by fear and who don't want to change anything, then you're not only doing them a disservice, you're doing yourself a disservice and closing doors that were either wide open or even just a little bit cracked open, and you don't want to be closing them on yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's play another game. You ready?
I failed all of them so far, so let's keep going.
No, man. Every one of them's been an interesting answer. Here you're going to build.
The answers have been as good as I was expecting, so it's all good.
Set the bar low.
Your favorite ideal brass quintet, any player, dead or alive.
You just want to get me in trouble.
Oh man, well then go with all dead guys. Then you're covered.
either actually dead or dead inside.
Well, that's much bigger.
My ideal brass quintet. Wow, I mean, that's not an easy thing either, because then you have to think, well, what style of music are they playing?
Well, you pick you pick the piece. Pick a piece first.
Okay, so I mean, when we were doing a lot of jazz and Boston brass, Rich Kelly on some like those Clifford Brown and bebop tunes, I just thought he was absolutely amazing on that stuff, and just brought something very different to the brass quintet. I'll tell you what, man, I listened to those early Empire recordings, and say what you will about Ralph Smedvig, but good Lord, just the level of musicianship, artistry, and playing on those things.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, Jeff Kurnow too. It's just the way they matched, the way they blended, at the same time making huge musical statements with just a few notes, was incredible. I always think of, as a horn player, I always love really paying attention to the blend between the horn player and the trombone player. And going back to Empire, I think of how Scott Hartman could really just completely change the color of his sound and to blend with the horn. I thought that was always very, very engaging. I mean, tuba-wise, I used to love to see Chuck Dallenbach, what he would do on stage. I just think in terms of performing, you couldn't keep your eyes off him. It was really, really just remarkable to see those kind of things. Oh boy. I mean, there's so many good ones. I know we kind of kidded around, but I used to love listening to Jens on piccolo things with Canadian brasses as well.
He didn't listen to this. You can say nice things about him.
When I hung out with him 2 weeks ago at Kevin Gibo's wedding, he said, as a result of us making fun of him on every episode, that the only way he's been able to pay us back is by not listening to a single episode. That's what.
Touche.
And then I said, well, do you want to be on the podcast? And he said, sure.
Don't get me wrong. I'll take exposure.
Yeah, he's really mad.
And then, I mean, tuba-wise too. I mean, just going back to Sam Palafian and listening to that level of groove that he laid down with that. There's so many great horn players out there between Eric Rusk and Marty Hackelman and Dave Ohanian, just really being the pioneers of what it means to be a horn player in an ensemble like that. Yeah, even Frank Lloyd, those kind of cats. So, boy, there's just so many of them out there.
Awesome. No, that's really that's a great list. I thank you for doing that. I know it's potentially a minefield, but you've handled it perfectly.
Now, how about can you name a brass quintet of famous brass players who you would definitely not want to have in your brass quintet?
Lance LaDuke, Andrew Hitz.
I said famous, dude. I did that on purpose. I was like, I'm going to take us out of this so he can't bust on us.
No, I can't.
Oh, yes, you can, but you're not going to. It's okay, man. It's just between us and thousands of other people. What could possibly go wrong? Oh goodness. Oh, here's a question for you. Who is a brass player that you have never played with that you would enjoy playing with?
Phil Smith. And I just grew up listening to his trumpet playing, and I mean, I couldn't listen to him without just being affected in some way positively, whether it was my jaw hitting the floor with his power or just wanting to cry with his artistry. I just always thought he was an incredible musician, and every time I heard him, I wanted to, and I've never met him. I've wanted to meet him. I've wanted to talk to him. I've wanted to, listen to him. And so I think he's one of the most terrific brass players I've ever heard.
His recording of Quiet City is pretty good.
Oh Lord, unbelievable!
If you're a trumpet player,
from the mid '80s recording that he did on that with Zubin Mehta. Wow.
Yep, I think that was actually 91. 90 or 91. Yeah, that's phenomenal.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Yeah, he's if you're a trumpet player, if you're a young trumpet player, I'm assuming any old ones have already, and you have not heard the New York Philharmonic recording of Quiet City, then you need to stop listening to this interview right now and go find it. And if it's not on any of the streaming services, you need to do something radical, which is actually an option, which is purchase it for money, because it'll change your life.
Is that those things called CDs?
Well, you can even, I bet you can buy it as a download. So, yeah, it's where you own the music. It's weird. Like, yeah, it's kind of it's an antiquated relic of the gatekeepers.
Nice.
Yeah, indeed.
Andrew and I had a chance we were down at the University of Georgia in the fall, and we had an opportunity to meet Phil Smith, and he was in watching our master class. We'd worked with this brass quintet. It's phenomenal. Graduate brass quintet.
Yeah,
I
really
mean,
great.
these guys were killing. And of course, Andrew being Andrew and me being me, we were like throwing trumpet jokes around left and right. Phil Smith was like, "Hey!"
Yeah,
I ran away from him at one point. I dropped a bomb and ran.
I did think twice. I was like, yeah, one of my heroes is in the room, and he's possibly the nicest human being in the world, and he's a trumpet player. I was like, no, they hired me to do my thing, and making fun of trumpet players is like 45% of that. So I should I should just keep letting them fly. So
I tell you what, I just met a musician that I've always wanted to meet for years because I think he's doing something completely different, and I met him at the Midwest Clinic, and that's Nat McIntosh of the Youngblood Brass Band.
He's a monster.
Yeah, holy cow! But I just had a chance to talk. We just ran across each other at a restaurant, and it was fun to finally meet somebody and put a personality to it. And I think as we grow up and we're young kids, we kind of idolize them and put these people on a pedestal, and it's so fun as you get older and you start meeting a lot of these people that were your heroes, and they're just normal, great people. And so if there's anything to come away with this, I say, younger musicians, don't ever be afraid to just go up to somebody, introduce yourself, and start talking to somebody.
And if you meet JD, give him a hug. He loves hugs.
Personal space is us.
We used to send people in the lobby over to JD to give him hugs because he hates them so much. So we did that regularly.
And then the joke kind of backfired on them because that's a sweaty man.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think anybody should be hugging me after a performance.
We got a twofer there. We got one over on JD and that audience member.
Yeah, all I know is we were winning for sure. Yeah. Anything to pass the time on the road.
One of my other favorites was the tug on the ear thing, which was if you were talking to somebody and they were hogging your time, the Boston Brass code for "Come Save Me" was to tug on your ear, which we all were really good about doing and really good at ignoring if it was Jeff Conner. Just smile and nod and wave.
Well, because he loves to talk to everybody.
That's right.
Oh. JD, have you heard the Jeff Conner episode of the Brass Junkies?
No, and I need to listen to that.
Yes, you do.
Because I saw you guys advertise it, and I haven't had a chance to go check it out yet.
It's pretty funny.
It's spectacular.
Yeah, we asked him about getting a pickle neck tattoo. It got really there's a lot of.
Did you bring up the soup can and wearing my underwear?
Did we?
I don't remember. There was so. I know.
You should have brought me in as a guest host for that. I would have just sat there mid soup can.
I don't.
Soup can.
Anyone that sees Jeff,
should
Jeff should definitely go up to him and ask him what the soup can story is. If you're
wearing JD's underwear.
Yeah, exactly. If JD's playing with them at Christmas time, you should first hug JD, and then you should go up to Jeff and ask him
From JD.
about the.
Not only did he wear his underwear, wore it from Nashville to Newport. Turns out it's not a short.
We did. That is true. Jeff did wear JD's underwear on an internet for a 12 time zone trip. Yeah.
Not at the same time. It was a separate pair of
That was it.
Until Jose threw them on
that also happened.
on a morning cafe in Austria.
Yeah, that also happened. Yep. Yeah, there's what is it with the trumpet players and JD's underwear in that band?
Good point.
Yeah, I don't think neither of the low brass guys ever touched JD's underwear, but both of the trumpet players did at some point or other.
Not when you were awake.
Wow, goodness. This is a family-friendly podcast, JD show.
Then why are you doing it?
Yeah, well,
You think of any stories that are appropriate. No?
Yeah, exactly. So JD, speaking of your underwear, would you like to offer some advice to Jens Lindemann on his chop problems?
Don't do the Brass Junkies podcast. That would be my advice.
See, that's the beautiful one because he's not going to hear that.
Yeah.
That's great.
So, if he's not going to hear it, then my advice is do exactly what you're doing right now.
There you go. Yeah, we think you're doing it.
Don't change a thing.
I really hate saying nice things about him, just like you said. But at Kevin Gibo's wedding over Christmas, Jens did an arrangement of the Girl with the Flaxen Hair along with 4 male vocalists on piccolo trumpet, and it was just it was infuriatingly great. It was really incredible. So
Chippendale dancer, male singer?
Yeah, exactly.
That would have been awesome, wouldn't it? Yen standing there in the middle of them.
That would have
his shirt off.
Yeah, that's we were up on the balcony, but that probably would have affected the vibe of the very beautiful service going on. So
well, it's good you got to see that. I didn't get an invite to Jiva's wedding.
Well, awkward. It was mainly trumpet players. You shouldn't be that upset about. That's the loudest door closing I think I've ever heard.
That's how mad I was.
Yeah, you're really mad. I will tell. Actually, I'll tell Kevin that you guys were complaining about not getting invited to his wedding because he's got a little Jeff in him in the sense that he'll be worried that you're actually upset. So I'm gonna plant that seed.
Yeah, he didn't give us the opportunity to say no.
Yeah.
What's with that guy?
Yeah, you never know. And then he and his wife, who is far too beautiful and smart for him, I can't figure it out, but they went to French Polynesia and had one of those huts with a glass floor looking out over the water, and it was not so bad.
So how much do you think his lifts cost for the wedding?
Lifts? That's a good question, man. I don't know.
Just curious.
I don't know.
I know trumpet players really made money.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is that. So, all right. Anything else there, Lance? This is
Anything you want to plug, Mr. Shaw? We've got the
Cones and Tones
coming up. April 2nd is the concert. It's up in Michigan. A good friend of mine, Roger Weiersberg at Saginaw Valley State, has invited us to come. We're actually going to probably do a pinch hit appearance. It's not been confirmed, but we're hoping to do something at Duquesne University late March. I'm not sure when this will air, but we'll try and get it up before those so that you can get a chance to check those out.
And University of South Carolina on March 14th.
Right, March 14th, University of South Carolina. We got man, that's like a tour. You kidding me?
What are we thinking?
We're gonna We're going to be famous.
Taking the world by storm in that.
I don't the
Washed Up Has Been Tour 16.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, used to play a lot.com.
I used to be a big deal.
Yeah.
.com.
I used to be a really big deal in the tuba world. Yeah, indeed.
Anything you like in terms of social media or a website or any of that stuff, or students are interested in coming? What's the best way to track you down?
Best way to track me down is just send me go to sc.edu/music, and you can find us there on the USC homepage.
Awesome. And you do both undergraduate and graduate and PhD, or DMA or PhD?
Yep.
You do there.
DMA, master's, undergrad. Perfect. We do it all.
Stop.
Beautiful.
Thanks for doing this.
Cool, man.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys.
Thank you so much to Mr. Shaw, and thank you, Lance. You are an inspiration as always.
Well,
and
it's nice to
that will do it for another episode of the Brass Junkies.
You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Austin Boyer and Buddy Deschler of the Fredericksburg Brass Institute. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.
Ho!